Hello and welcome to our employment tax commentary following the Chancellor's spring budget announcement yesterday lunchtime. The backdrop is of course an uncertain world and UK economy, with inflation in February at around 6.2% and expected to average at 7.4% this year. Downward pressure on wages combined with high inflation providing this backdrop created some optimism that we would see some significant help for employer and employee alike. In the event, the changes around employment taxes were limited, and we were somewhat left to rue what might have been included, but was in fact not. My name is Dave Hedges, and I lead the National Employment Taxes team here at Azets. We are specialist advisors in the SME market, and in this session, I will discuss the changes announced, as well as some items which were anticipated, but which did not make an appearance. Looking at the changes now. The Chancellor has stated the employee national insurance starting threshold will rise from £12,570 from July 2022, with no employee national insurance paid below that sum. Above that figure, the employee will pay at 13.25% from July 2022. The upper threshold remains unchanged, but do of course bear in mind that the reduced rate of 2% currently will rise to 3.25% from April 2022. Now, there was no mention on a change to the employer threshold, which is actually unchanged. However, the employment allowance for employers will rise by £1,000 to £5,000. The eligibility for employer allowance is where an employer's national insurance liability is less than £100,000 in the previous tax year. This will be a helpful easement for small employers, which goes some way toward mitigating the fact that there is no change in the national insurance threshold, and which the Chancellor estimated will benefit in the region of 500,000 SME businesses. We welcome the planned discussions on reliefs such as training, qualifications and R&D credits, but for SMEs, these measures in combination, as well as the temporary cut in fuel duty, are unlikely, in my view, to fully mitigate the inflationary impact of the health and social care levy from April 2022. This means that there may well be more pressure on SMEs from their employees to increase wages to offset the effects of increased inflation, and may well impact adversely on staff retention. The income tax rate from 2024 is welcome, but of course employees are already struggling with steeply rising living costs. So what do we not hear anything about? Firstly, a word about mileage rates for employees using their own car for business trips. Approved HMRC mileage rates for own car users are currently 45 pence per mile for the first 10,000 business miles in a tax year, and then reducing to 25 pence per mile thereafter. Some analysts predicted an increase in these rates to reflect rising fuel costs. However, the rates have actually remained unchanged, I presume on the basis that the current fuel prices are considered to be something of a blip which will reverse relatively quickly. I speculate. Of course, we should bear in mind that fuel duty has been reduced by 5 pence per litre. I was also expecting some simplification around the provision of electricity for electric vehicles provided to employees. This was not mentioned, and it therefore remains that employers need to carefully consider the tax issues when providing electricity or reimbursing employees for the cost of it. The increase in national insurance rates does mean that salary sacrifice for electric and low emissions cars, pensions contributions as well, becomes even more attractive than it is at current rates. We can support employers in implementing arrangements in these areas and provide appropriate analysis of the benefits from both an employee and employer perspective. And finally, I was expecting some reference to so-called agile working. The pandemic has seen over the last couple of years a significant shift towards home working. And whilst employees are now returning to the office, the home to work dynamic has undoubtedly changed. The current £6 per week home working allowance was expected to cease from April 2022, but as yet we have no clarity on this point. Further, The rules which define the nature of an employee's workplace from an employment tax perspective are complex, and the associated tax rules around payments for travel costs sometimes difficult to apply. Simplification in this area has long been mooted and, in my view, would perhaps have been welcome in light of these changing working and travel patterns. This concludes my presentation. As ever, please do get in touch with me or any of the Azets team if you would like to discuss any of these points further. Thank you for your time and have a good day.